We're just going to jump right into a little interactive activity that I like to do to get things going. And this is in Mentimeter. So this is requiring you to, what I really like is if you pick up another device like your phone or you've got another device running, go to menti.com as it says so on the screen, and use the code 901966 and just describe just one positive experience related to your education practice that you experienced during COVID. I want you to think of the positives, because actually there were quite a few. Getting a glimpse into family homes. Yep, I've done this one before with other groups, and that's interesting. Parents were more involved with knowing how AT can work at home. Absolutely, we found that huge in terms of AAC use, augmentative communication use, and them becoming real active partners in terms of modeling with their children. Collaboration with other agencies, talking to families a lot more. Isn't that interesting? Keep going. There's Lynn now, just signed in. Hi, Lynn. So people were apprehensive using technology. The uptake of technology use that I've seen by teachers, by administrators. I was working with the Department of Ed, and the skill sets that they gained, which was huge in the student services department, was remarkable, and they're very enthusiastic about it. So that was extremely positive. Students more engaged in tutoring, witnessed different strengths of students. So we have 20 people in the room or so we should have way more responses. So pick up your other device and go to menti.com and share one positive experience if you'd like to. If you would prefer to make your comment in the chat box, go ahead. We can monitor that as well. So one positive experience. Exploring my own tech teaching practices and developing new strategies. What about all the free webinars that were available? Hopefully some of you were able to take advantage of those. Okay, let's go to the next question. In one word, state one barrier you experienced during COVID. If you can, in one word, although it will accept two. This will put your answers into a word cloud. Equity, access, communication, frustrated parents. Oh, for sure. Absolutely. Frustrated teachers, frustrated kids, isolation. What about technology internet access? And we had a lot of kids with assistive technology needs that didn't have their assistive technology at home, right? So that's always a bit of a problem. Okay, that's great. Thank you for those contributions. You can keep adding them as we go. One more question. Share one or two concerns related to assistive technology service delivery that you have with our return to school in the fall. And this is this will post a full sentence or two response. So higher requests for access. Do you mean access to the internet? Teacher negativity? Access devices and materials, absolutely. Students not coming to school. Family student access to internet and technology, yeah. Yeah, those are all major concerns. And we've talked about all of those in our collaborative meetings with our AT specialists internationally. and lack of internet access for families. Yeah, confusing roles. Yes, that's an interesting one. And we need to really get a handle on explicit roles and responsibilities. Will the Zoom platform be accepted in HRCE? That would be nice. They're going to keep the the Zoom education platform running with specialized licenses, as far as I know. So supporting parents in their knowledge of AT. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so thanks for that. You can keep adding or go back to that. Actually, I have to activate that screen. But let's go to the presentation and I'll just describe to you what this document is and the purpose of the document. Again, it's the Assistive Technology Service Delivery COVID Planning Preparedness Guide, and it's a working document. We've had a few meetings with different groups, including the AT UDL lead team from across the province, and we really added this new section and really clarifying the purpose of this document. And you have access to this. I'm going to give you time in a little bit when I stop talking, and give you time. It's in that folder link that I posted to the chat box. So you'll have time to work through this on your own, but I do want to show you how it's interactive and how it works so you can work through it easily. We wanted to really clarify what the purpose of this document is, and it refers to the entire AT service delivery, not just giving you this device and that's it. And it's delivered however it works across the province in any RCE or CSAP, because AT service delivery is quite different across the province. So any individual could refer to this document and take pieces of it if they want to, and think about how they're delivering AT. So just you can read through that later. It's a guide offering suggestions only for the 3 potential learning environments that we're going to be facing potentially in the fall. It's also meant to be only one component of a larger COVID preparedness plan, as it states at the bottom, covering all services being prepared by the province. And I should say we did present this to Department of Ed when I was working with them the last few months, and they have taken this document and adopted it, and they're including it in their larger provincial plan. So that's actually pretty exciting, because now we're thrilled that they're thinking about assistive technology and building it into their discussions. So on the next page, it just has some links to some definers and qualifiers. You can click on these links. We're really categorizing accessible technology as Tier 1 technology. You can click on those links, and those are accessible technology. Tier 1 technology is technology that benefits most students, so they have built-in customizable features for a broad range of abilities. And again, supporting most students, not all, but most students. I've also included, because we're talking about Tier 1 here, a document in the folder that we developed as a larger group. See if it gets to there. And it's this MTSS document. I'll try and open it. And you can refer to it. It's just the MTSS chart, which we developed as a large group, and our ATUDL lead team, we've adopted it at the South Shore Regional Center for Education. It is in the folder link that I've shared with you. Further explanation of how assistive technology services and devices fits into MTSS. So definitely please refer to that. And there's a nice explanation of Tier 1, Tier 2, which is more focused assistive technology for some students with additional learning requirements who aren't necessarily benefiting from those built-in, accessible technologies. And then we have Tier 3, intensive assistive technology that's very responsive and supportive of students with complex needs. So again, you have definitely have access to that. So click on the links back to the backgrounder. We're going to talk a bit today, hopefully, about the SET framework, because the SET framework designed by Joy Zabala, Dr. Joy Zabala, really refers to a framework that we use across the province to identify appropriate assistive technology to a wide range of students who are referred to us. And SET, as you probably figured out, refers to the student, a descriptor of the student, the environment that assistive technology will be used in or could be used in, the tasks that we're asking the student or what the student needs to achieve, and the technology. So what is that technology that's appropriate to meet the student, the environment, and the task needs? And we've added that extra T with the impact of time, which is hugely relevant these days. So that gives you a little bit of a background on the document that we're going to get to in a little while. So there's a link on impact of COVID on AT service delivery, and it has actually been huge because now we're not just doing assessments, for example, face-to-face. How do we identify the appropriate assistive technology? We traditionally dive in and work with students one-on-one, students with complex needs. We have the OT there, the PT, the SLP, we're hands-on, we're adjusting, the height of the monitor, etc., if that's the case. With the literal leap to virtual classroom, it really challenges us to think really creatively and much differently in how we do assessments, how we do follow-up monitoring, how we do purchasing and delivering. All of those are part of our assistive technology service delivery components or jobs, really. So I'll let you take a look at that. And there is a jump to the recommendations, but I want to first show you how we structured this document. So AT service delivery services, we're looking at within as an impact of COVID in 3 different learning environments. One is the traditional learning environment, which, by the way, isn't really the traditional learning environment because we're going to be possibly facing fewer kids in the classroom. Are we even able to go in as specialists, etc., itinerant teachers, SLPs, because really traditionally I could be in 3 or 4 schools during one day. So we're not sure even if we're going to be able to be allowed to do that. But we're going to be following different like health protocols and communication protocols, etc. So thinking of the traditional learning environment and the way it was, it's just not the way it was. And maybe it never will be. Then we have the dual learning environment that also can be quite different. We're not just talking about the face-to-face classroom and virtual learning over here. We could have some students who might be doing a component of both, or they might be doing their virtual learning in in the school setting. So that can be a little switch up of that dual learning environment, not as obvious as traditional and virtual. And then we have the leap. Hopefully this doesn't happen to, again, that complete virtual learning environment. So let's just take a look. This is based on Gail Bowser's work in a very efficient, proven, evidence-based assistive technology service delivery that she's been working on for years, and she does extensive training on the efficacy of AT service delivery in the States and beyond. And these are the really specific areas of services that we provide as specialists in the province. So different things we do are we carry out functional evaluation. So we identify appropriate assistive technologies for students. And we make that, again, appropriate match. Traditionally, that's face-to-face. But we have to, again, think differently. We do all the purchasing and distribution of that assistive technology. So in the traditional environment, it would be, placing the orders, which we do virtually, receiving it, we might be setting it up, and then taking it to the school and helping set up hands-on. We've built in, based on our international AT service delivery COVID planning meetings, evidence of impact, because it's an area that we're not quite as good at. We know that. In Nova Scotia, I know in our area in the South Shore, evidence of impact or data collection, we really need to do a better job of. And we added that as an added role to AT service delivery because of the broader meetings. We do a lot of AT capacity building because there's only a few AT specialists even across the province, and we need to do lots and lots of training so we can really build the AT capacity across the province. And that will, again, continue in the traditional environment, but it'll switch up for sure in the virtual environment. Same with follow-up and monitoring. We don't just drop off a device, identify the device and drop it off. We constantly are monitoring and working with the teams to identify what's working, what isn't working, and adjusting. And then, of course, ongoing team collaboration is absolutely necessary. So you can even be there now if you want to in this document. If you look at functional evaluation, what we're doing is looking at the referral process. So how does that actually happen? And traditionally it is through TINET, and in our area, our region anyway, it comes through TINET. We complete a file review through TINET. I work with Anita Kingdon, the AT facilitator, and she divvies it up who is going to go to the school and actually do the assessment with the student. And we digitally schedule. So all that in essence, in every single learning environment will stay the same. But we do travel to the schools and perform those AT assessments with the students. And so the AT service delivery adjustment that we have to be looking at is one thing, we're dividing referrals specifically and the assessments into tier 1 accessible or tier 2 and 3 assistive technology. So we need teachers to be utilizing more the built-in customizable features of the technology that's readily available in the classroom. So that might be text to speech built in. It might be speech to text. It might be magnification, word prediction, and all of those built-in exciting features that some students will be able to benefit from before there actually is a referral. So we're going to be developing a free referral AT assessment have you tried document. Have you tried any of those customizable features? And also do training on when to refer assistive technology to assistive technology for tier 2 or tier 3 AT. And when we have face-to-face in school, we're going to look at tier 2 and 3 face-to-face assessments that are a priority. And we're also thinking of developing assessment kits. And of course, we're going to build on our virtual training. Things we have to be looking at in the traditional learning environment are all these new health protocols. Very important, because remember, even in the traditional environment, we hand over our technology for the kids to use. They get their hands on it, and they hand it back. It's very interactive, so we have to establish that protocol. And we've had meetings with the healthcare nurses in our area and attended different webinars to get an idea of that. We have to think about space availability, staff availability, meeting location, because honestly, I've had to do assessments in a closet sometimes because there's no other room available. Okay, so if you want to, when you've got the document up, go back to that original page, you can just click on that top button. And purchasing and distribution, basically it stays the same because we're already doing that virtually. However, with distribution, we have to think of the health protocols, right? How we, cleanse the devices before they actually go out. And I should mention that there's one section I'm going to jump back to. Sorry about this, because I want you to realize that these are all the different assistive technology categories that we work with. We don't work just with Chromebooks and iPads. And this is a page that's divided up our examples of assistive technology aligned with MTSS. So aids for vision, aids for hearing, seating and positioning, mobility aids, even adapted desks or slant boards, etc., hippocamps, sensory integration, weighted vests, etc. So please realize that we're not just talking about, the electronic devices. Okay, so let me get back to where I was. Very easy to engage in this document. So evidence of impact, again, an area that we really, really need to dive into and get if anyone has any feedback on how to do this better, then please reach out to us or share it in the chat box, because this is something we definitely need to do. And this is evidence of how well assistive technology is actually being utilized in whatever environment. And we're talking about Google Forms after trainings, narrative feedback, enhance audio, video, and screenshots of pictures, etc. Get a baseline and then collect impact feedback. For AT capacity building, again, this is the training of the teams that's so critical, because we go in and we do the assessments, and then there's only a few of us. We go on to the next assessment, or we do a lot of training, but we need the team members, SLPs, classroom teachers, OTs, parents, primary users using the technology to be the deliverers of the support and actual delivery of AT services and how to use the devices. So traditionally it's face-to-face on completion of an assessment. We place the technology, we bring teams in for training. So consideration of time, again, face-to-face is going to be quite different because we don't know if we can bring groups of people together, but we know that we can take advantage of more virtual training for AT services and or recommendations on specific devices, team training virtually, then there's scheduling issues. So all of these service delivery adjustments are suggestions. So we're thinking of offering virtual office hours. Please comment on that if you think that would be beneficial. And again, we're doing lots of regional summer learning academies, etc. Okay, so follow-up and monitoring. Again, usually we do that face-to-face, go in, or we reach out to the learning center teacher, classroom teacher, resource teacher, and get feedback on how the AT we've recommended is being utilized, and we adjust. So we might need to have more virtual follow-up meetings that we've been doing in the virtual world anyway. And we're talking too about collaborating more with not that we don't already, but SLPs, OTs, APSI itinerants, literacy and math mentors, and instructional coaches, and bringing them in for the training because they might be in that particular school providing supports. And ongoing team collaboration, usually that's face-to-face, but even in the traditional environment, we're going to be upping our virtual support and training. Yeah, so you can click on home there. In the dual learning environment, it looks essentially the same, but we have the same as traditional, but we have the virtual component. So I'm just going to jump to the virtual learning environment, and you'll see a little bit of difference. We're still going to do all our referral process digitally, and that has worked extremely well. We love TyNet just for that very reason. Again, our AT service delivery adjustment is we're going to develop an virtual AT assessment. So how do we work with a student when they're at home with or without their assistive technology, and working with whatever support worker is in the home, and how do we do that virtually? So there's lots of ideas that's come out from our broader meetings, and so developing assessment checkpoints document for in-home assessment, so being prepared with each individual student who's working from home and their parents. So we're pivoting to a virtual consultative and coaching AT service if we have any virtual component to a learning environment that particular student is in. We are developing AT observation checklists and spreadsheets that are shared with parents. So they're going to hopefully become much more active partners in terms of that virtual AT service delivery. Establish the process for getting AT to home for evaluation. Setup is always an issue with more kids with more complex needs. Positioning is tricky. We do still have to figure that out. And again, more collaboration with our other professionals in consideration of health protocols. Cleaning, how do we get the devices to them? Purchasing and distribution, basically all goes virtual, but again, who sets up a device like an iPad when it comes into us, and how do we get it out to the home following those health protocols? We're definitely going to be nailing this in September. Evidence of impact, the same. We have to really identify how to collect the data on how the AT is working, to be able to monitor and support, and change the recommendation if needed. So traditionally it's face-to-face, and again, we really rely on TINET to collect our data, but we need to do more. So virtual observations and report writing is a recommendation as an adjustment to our service. IPP outcomes or adaptations listed in TINET to enhance performance, report cards as indicators of efficacy of AT use, learner feedback, so first voice of AT, whether that's parent feedback, video feedback, if people want to engage in that, Google Forms after trainings, and narrative data feedback and collection. As I mentioned, audio, interviews, feed video, screenshots of pictures for baseline and follow-up, and telepractice session plans developed in Google Spreadsheet, which actually have been done by some professionals in the States. So we have access to those documents, and we'll be taking advantage of those. So the training will basically flip to all virtual. So deliver AT training virtually, and we're lucky because we're super good at that, we think. I know there's always practice that needs to be done, but we have a YouTube channel that offers all sorts of different training. We have a CLT website that's focused on AT, UDL, MTSS that has gained some speed and it's a working document and probably will never be finished, but it is quite extensive in terms of offering support to teams. And again, training more with literacy and math mentors, etc. So everybody engaging with kids in the home can know about assistive technology being utilized and support use. Again, follow-up and monitoring. Develop, again, a telepractice session plan in Google Spreadsheet, and then ongoing team collaboration will just flip to completely virtual. So let's go to jump to our recommendations, and then I'm going to give you some about 10, let's see what time it is, minutes to look at the document yourself and get some feedback. So one of the things that let's look at service adjustment recommendation first. Again, develop the accessibility technology have you tried checklist prior to AT referral. So that's, have you tried the built-in accessibility options or any of the low tech, medium tech, high tech that's beneficial to most students? And we're going to have a sheet. It's going to be a checklist. In our AT referral form, we want that checklist attached to the referral form, and we'll be working with teachers to help them identify when a student, what to look for when, and I know a lot of teachers already know this, but when a student needs more support, when the built-in accessibility options, for example, isn't enough for that student, it's time to refer to the Assistive Technology Center for an AT assessment. So we want that information attached to the referral, and then no matter what environment, we'll be going in and doing our assessment. And then when to refer to assistive technology training for tier 2 and 3. And we know that's dependent, and we'd love to see all students having access to accessible tier 1 technology. I know that's going to be one of your main points. And there is a really big rollout of Chromebooks, I know, to junior high, high school, and a different approach for elementary. So for capacity building, again, I mentioned and school-based AT, we would love to be training a designate in every single school to be our eyes and ears and help support a setup of an assessment, whether we can go into that school or not, and we do the assessment and make the appropriate match recommendations virtually. So that is dependent, obviously, on budget, but there are other people too we can possibly rely on. And it also means that they need to be available if we're identifying having to do that assessment. So again, appoint an AT technology designate in each school to set up assessments, training areas, help with assessments, and prepare. Our next recommendation, is developing AT assessment kits. And this is tricky, not so difficult with tier 2 supports, but it's much trickier with tier 3 supports because of the complexity and the individualized needs of each student with those complex needs. So this is something that we're looking at. It was a suggestion from our broader AT specialist group internationally, and so we'll be discussing how to actually do that. And dependent on, as you can see here, the learning environment and the AT designate and virtual assessments, and a safe place in the school to deliver, pick up, and set up. And of course, I mentioned the checklists. Okay, so what I'd like you to do is I posted the YouTube channel name is under my name, actually, so that makes it a little easier, I think. I'm just going to give you this folder link in the chat box, and you'll see yourselves come up there. And what I'd like you to do, what's our time? Oh, I'd like you to take 5 minutes, just 5, because I really wanted to share the reset document with you. If you could go to that, I'll just click on it here, and it will take us to what you're going to see in this folder that you now have access to from that drive. And it's a copy of this presentation. So I'd love you to just breeze through quickly, and you're going to want to hopefully digest it a little later in more detail with more time. But that will take you to the COVID preparedness plan. So while you're in that folder, let's just take a quick look. And this is new to everybody's eyes. So it's actually pretty exciting. I did, if you can log in there, and let's take a look at the reset framework worksheet. And Becky and Lynn haven't even seen this document yet. This is our next bigger meeting that we'll be participating in August 12th with our AT gurus. So please log into this document, and I've kind of started a little, it's really based on individual collaborative consideration, as it says here, of student need for COVID. So we're looking at, I've just filled in a case study. So a grade 5 student, and this is a grade 5 student. Notice here it says, I'm just going to highlight this, tier 3 services and support. So we're really basing these documents on the MTSS. So Hopefully we won't have to identify any tier 1, because those will be dealt with in the classroom, but definitely once referrals come in for tier 2 and 3, these are the SET framework, which we're calling the reset framework because of COVID, building in information in each environment. So just quickly, let's have some feedback on. So this is just a case study, and we've got 5 minutes to do this because I have a little exit activity. Grade 5, on an IPP. So this is where we'd put in what we know about the student, and this is information that obviously the team would be collaborating on, the family, if appropriate, the primary user. So this one is just an example, an AAC user. She's grade 5, IPP, emergent literacy learner, emergent communicator, currently gesturing, limited novel, ASL, and with Down syndrome. So we would fill in information in the traditional environment, in blended, what we know, and virtual, and what we, and identify the tasks. Anyone want to volunteer to get in to set up a subgroup and play with it a little bit? Yes.
Were you planning to have this filled in by the AT personnel or by the teacher or specialist referring to AT, or both, as a working document, as a plan of approach for a child?
Yeah, so it's probably going to be led by, I see it led by the AT person, but it's definitely collaborative, right? So we have team members participating in this. So you have access to this and our 5-minute view. I apologize for being so speedy through this, but you do have access to it if you want to provide me any feedback in a different way after the fact, or want to play with it a little bit as and be part of the larger ATUDL lead team. We'll be probably looking at this. Becky and Lynn, you want to comment on that later on in September, and just seeing how efficient it actually is. Okay, Cindy says she loves the chart. I'm just going through. So what I'd love to do, if you don't mind, is zip in back to Menti, and I want to go back to my little exit activity for you, and we should be able to definitely finish up by the time that's designated. So just real quickly, state 3 takeaways from the AT COVID preparedness plan we just reviewed. If you can, type quickly or use your speech to text. And I'll give you a minute. Can be just 1-word comments if you want. And if you prefer, you can definitely put your comments in the chat box. Innovative, proactive. Thank you. In problem solving and inclusive. Support and access will be available in all situations. Yeah, we'll definitely be figuring it out. Oh yes, I didn't mention it's a new survey. So menti.com, and the new code is 36294. We have 3 comments so far. Anybody else? Yes, there is definitely a lot to think about, and it's going to change. We really need to be ready to pivot, and I didn't mention that, right? So we need to also be ready to pivot from traditional to virtual in a flash, and hopefully that doesn't happen. But nevertheless, we are going to have some kids, especially some kids with complex needs, that we're feeling are not going to be coming to school. So we need to implement assistive technology service delivery to those students virtually in the home. Good start. Like that it's dynamic, user-friendly. Love the preparation, detailed help to prepare. Okay, let's go to the next. We would love your input. What else could we add to the plan? What have we missed? And I know we're definitely running out of time. So maybe just think about those. Just continue to think about those ideas and email me with your comments. bwellsford@ssrce.ca. Because what I'd really like to do, other community agencies for sure. And on our AT lead team, we have IWK, we have all sorts of other, the MK board, obviously APSI is part of our group. And we are accessing other community agencies for input for sure. Yes, there's a lot of digestion that needs to happen. Yeah, guidelines. Okay. You can follow us on Twitter. Great. And thanks so much for all the positive feedback. If you have any questions, comments, you want to connect further around this, please reach out to me, because we know it's a working document. We know that we need your input and perspective and experiences to really pull it together and make sure AT services are really effective in the fall.